Members, it's already the appointed time, and all of us are here already. Well, since I came first, I have no choice but to preside the subcommittee here. I've received an application from Mr. Raymond Wong to withdraw from the subcommittee on issues relating to public markets. All right. Do we accept it?
好，咁現在就進行。
Now, we will first elect the chairman for the subcommittee. For the procedures, please refer to Annex or Appendix 4 to the House Rules. We need the nomination of one member to be seconded by another, or to be seconded by another, before we have a valid nomination. All right, I invite nominations now. Dr. Kwakaki, I nominate Ms. Ellen Leung. Do you accept, Mr. Leung? Any other nominations? Ms. Alice Mack? I nominate you, Mr. Vincent Fang. Thank you. Any seconder? Yes, I do. I accept the nomination, and therefore I have to defer to another member. Perhaps Mr. Wong Kwok Heng can come over to chair the election.
All
right, I will take the chair for the election of the chairman. If there are no other nominations, then we will now carry out the election by closed ballot. You will each be given a ballot paper. The candidates will be allocated a number according to the order of nominations made. So Mr. Leung is number 1, Mr. Vincent Fang is number 2. Please do not show your ballot paper to any other person, because this is a closed ballot. All right, we are now handing out the ballot papers. Have we all got a ballot paper? Okay, we've all got one. Please apply the seal to the paper. Okay, thank you. As you can see, number 1 is Mr. Ellen Leung. Number 2, Mr. Vincent Fang. Please make the right choice.
Well,
I already declared the start of the election. So please make sure that you have removed the cap before you apply the chop. Oh, you are so considerate, so thoughtful, Chairman. So you have all made your choice. I declare the election closed. Staff, please retrieve the ballot papers. Please drop your own ballot paper into the box, and please do not leave your seats before this is over. Okay. Can the nominating members of the two candidates come out to monitor the counting of votes, please? Dr. Kwokaki and Ms. Alice Mack. Do we have to read out the names? Okay. No. Okay, I declare I announce the result. Mr. Alan Leung has got 5 votes, and number 2, Mr. Vincent Fang, 7 votes. So Mr. Vincent Fang is elected chairman of the subcommittee. Congratulations. May I invite Mr. Vincent Fang to take the chair now. Thank you for your support. Members, do we have to elect a deputy chairman? Is that a need? I nominate Mr. Alan Leung. Any seconder? Okay, Ms. Sit Ho seconds. Mr. Leung, do you accept? I do. Any other nominations, please? If not, then Mr. Alan Leung is elected and contested. Thank you. And congratulations. Please invite the officials to join us now.
Okay. 首先係歡迎。
Let us welcome government officials. Please refer to the list already tabled. Deputy Director, are you going to walk us through the paper? Thank you, Chairman. This subcommittee is set up to study issues relating to the operating environment of public markets. Prior to the meeting, the administration has forwarded a paper to the subcommittee setting out the current positioning and functions of public markets, and also on the actions being taken by the administration to address issues relating to the operating environment of public markets. First, on the positioning and functions of public markets. As we all know, the 2 ex-municipal councils built public markets for reciting of hawkers, of Hon Street hawkers, so as to minimize environmental nuisance and obstruction to pedestrians and vehicular traffic. And In fact, with enhanced hawker management, the problems concerning hawkers have largely been contained. Since the 1990s, the main function that public markets used to serve as a measure to support our hawker policy was no longer valid. And in 2009, there was a review by the government. The FGHD conducted a survey, a questionnaire survey, and also organized some consultation fora. And the review concludes that public markets fulfill an important social function, and that public markets are one of the major sources of fresh profit provisions for the grassroots. And public markets also provide considerable jobs to the grassroots. Legislators and members are concerned about the rentals of public markets. In fact, all public market stores are let out through open auctions. Interested parties can take into account relevant business factors, including the customer flow, the environment and facilities of markets, as well as competition from shops nearby. And then they can decide whether or not to bid for a store and also the rental they are willing to pay. And in early 1998, there was the financial turmoil and also an economic downturn. And then the former municipal councils decided to reduce public market rental across the board by 30%. And since then, market rentals have been frozen at that level. It's at end of the 31st of December 2015. I mean, the freeze period will end on the 31st of December 2015. While we have frozen the rents of public markets, the occupancy rate of stores have been as high as 90%. There are 14,445 stores, and about 14,445 have been let, and the occupancy rate stood at 90%, and 79% of them are paying less than the open market rental, or OMR. In 2012-13, the FEHD recorded a deficit of $220 million in the management of public markets, and the deficit in 2013-14 is estimated to be $236.4 million. In the past few years, the government has consulted the panel on several occasions regarding the proposed rental adjustment mechanism for public market stores. The administration recognizes that any proposed adjustment in rental should not be radical and has to be made in a gradual manner to take care of the affordability of the public market store traders. And then in January 2013, that was the last time we made proposals to the panel, and we suggested that market rentals should be adjusted in accordance with the movement of the average CPIA of the past 3 years, with the increase capped at 5% or the OMR, whichever is the lower. Well, the average rental is $2,600, so the average adjustment is just about $80, and the lowest adjustment is only 50 cents for the smallest store. So the financial implications would only be very moderate. However, it's the decision of the members of the panel that there should be an overall review of our public market policy before we discuss the new rental adjustment mechanism. And on the 16th of April and the 9th of January last year, we submitted papers to the panel saying that we're going to commission a consultancy to conduct a comprehensive review of our public markets operations. And the study would cover the functions and positioning of public markets. The consultancy study will tender views on the current functions and position of public markets, and it will also survey the public markets and come out with specific improvement proposals for 5 or 6 representative ones. So these public markets will represent different typical types, and we will generalize the findings. And the third is to provide some general suggestions for the routine improvement works of public markets. And number 4, to suggest ways and concrete measures to preserve market stalls that are selling traditional commodities or involving trading specialty. Well, each market has its own unique circumstances with regard to the physical facilities required and the operational problems encountered and the competition from other retail outlets in the vicinity. So the consultant will categorize the problems and analyze them accordingly with a view to tackling the problem on their own merits. And the consultant is expected to comprehensively analyze all relevant factors affecting the operating environment of public markets. So the consultant will consider the software aspects to see how there can be more customer flow to enhance the operating environment of the market. So the study started in December last year, and if everything goes smoothly, we hope that the consultant will be able to submit the preliminary findings in the middle of this year, and we can then share with you our findings. So we have made sustained efforts to enhance the operating environment of our public markets. Pending the outcome of the consultancy study, FEHD will continue to implement improvement measures. So, and then we can give an account to members. Thank you. The floor is now open to members for questions.
First is Wong Kok-heng, Chairman. First of all, on this subcommittee having its first meeting, I'm very pleased because this subcommittee was formed after the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene passed my motion. We had to wait for a long time for resources, actually for more than a year before. Now we can activate the work of this subcommittee. So I'd like to thank members for your support for establishing this subcommittee. The motion passed in the past covered not just setting up this subcommittee, but also evaluating public markets. That is, there should be a review of public markets before rentals should be increased. But now that we have finally begun our work, the consultant's report won't be ready till the middle of this year. Now it's the end of March. That means we won't have anything to discuss until the middle of this year. So I hope that the chairman can see now we haven't got a homework done for us, for the consultant. Can I then suggest that on the retrofitting of air conditioning in public markets, on rental issues, can we have one session or 2 sessions to look at them and to invite representatives of stores in public markets to attend a public hearing so we can hear from them first? I think this would mean that we won't be losing our time before the report is done. So in the coming months, we can focus on the operating environment of public markets and possible improvement measures by listening to relevant people and groups to tell us their views. As for this report itself, I want to make a clear criticism against it. I think this paper is misleading because in paragraph 9 to 11, it's been reported in the paper today already that the public markets in the past had a deficit of $220.1 million, and there'll be a further deficit in 2013-14. Therefore, there's a 5% potential increase in rentals. But this paper has not told us that of the 70 public markets, there are non-unconditioned. That's a problem. If public markets can make good business, they wouldn't mind having a rental increase. I'm sure if they are having good business, they wouldn't mind paying more rent. But the question is, why is it that all these stores in the markets have asked the government to freeze the rent? They've asked the rental to be frozen to the end of next year. Therefore, I want the government to speed up the work of the consultants. Chairman, as an ex-elected municipal councillor and also a member of the Street Vendors Association, after the cancellation of the 2 municipal councils in the past decade, the government has not actually adopted any measure in a step-by-step manner to address the issue of air conditioning in public markets. Over the past decade, we have tackled a lot of the issues left from the urban council era, but then this air conditioning issue has remained unresolved. Therefore, I think that the paper itself has not addressed this issue, and this actually is misleading. So it's not a complete paper to me. Therefore, I hope that Chairman, could you see whether we can hold public hearings in the next 2 to 3 months to invite representatives from various organizations and street store operators to tell us their views. I was not expecting so many members to want to speak, therefore I haven't given a time limit, but I think from now on we have to set a limit of 5 minutes for each member. So, Director or Secretary? Well, as for the retrofitting of air conditioning in markets, actually in the last paragraph of our paper we have mentioned the issue, but we have not given the details. Actually, by the end of last year, 76 public markets under the department, of them, more than 50 have not had air conditioning, but about a dozen have air conditioning equipment. Mr. Wong just mentioned the 19 projects left from the previously urban council era. We had to talk to the store operators concerned first. The projects involved, some of them involved retrofitting of air conditioning. I think members understand that in the past we've mentioned that public markets can only have air conditioning if at least 80% of the store operators agree to it. For the individual store operators, once they have bidded successfully for a store in the market, they may not have expected to shoulder the cost of air conditioning. So that's something for them to consider. And also, some, for example, up to 15% of the operators, they may not want to remain operating in the market if they had to have the air conditioning. So we have to have a certain percentage of store operators agreeing to air conditioning first before we can do anything, to be fair. And on this issue as well, the construction costs will be shouldered by the government. Operators will only need to shoulder the recurrent expenses. Therefore, we've tried our best. There are 4 markets, indeed, in which we have installed air conditioning for them, costing from $23 million to $76 million. So, if a market has a certain percentage of operators who support air conditioning, then we would discuss the possibility with the Architectural Services Department. Sorry, Chair, I can't let you speak further. Well, sorry, I didn't know how much time I had. But I'll be brief. I'll try to be brief. When the department quoted a figure of 85%, I think that's not a figure set by the former urban council, and 85% is actually the requirement is something that we need to review in relation to the policy of retrofitting air conditioning. Well, I didn't say that this percentage was set by the previous urban council. Well, I'm a former municipal councillor, but in point 6, paragraph 6, you said that there isn't much value in keeping public markets because the hawker policy is no longer valid. But I don't think this is true. If you go to Chongyuan Street or Canwa Street, there are even not enough actually space on the streets for even trams, not to mention hawkers. But I think we're lucky to have a number of ex-municipal councillors here, and we could challenge you here. Talking about the issue of rental increases in public markets, we need to be clear about the positioning of public markets and our goals first. If we have not steered away from the goals of the former municipal council, urban council, then we need to focus on the issue. The government needs to commit itself to sustaining the policy set in the past. So I think the Secretariat can find out the policy papers of the former municipal council or urban council. Because back in those days, urban council said that, air conditioning should be free. But now, only when there were old markets that were renovated, then the situation changed. So this 85 or 70% percentage is something new. It was not set by the previous urban council. I think if we haven't come to a decision on the policy, then the rental should be frozen. Oh, Secretary, I never said that the 85% was a percentage set by the previous urban council. I'm just telling the facts. I never tied the percentage to the urban council in the past. So we need to look at the papers then from the past. Next one is Alan Liang, followed by James Tian, Sid Ho, Fernando Zhang, Eleanor Wong, and
主席喺即係上一年
Matt Meyi. Well, thank you. At the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene, we heard from the government that it would hire a consultant. Then, because of time needed to set up this subcommittee, we were actually kept in the dark of what's going on. I think the most urgent issue for us now is mentioned in 18 to 20, paragraphs 18 to 20, about the consultancy study. At our next meeting, I think we must ask the consultant to discuss with us. Just then, 2 members had said that, I'm sure the Secretary is clear about this. The frozen period is up to the end of 2015. So in the 2-year period, I hope that, of course, you can tell us what the government's plan is, timetable is. We have already got a consensus within LegCo. I'm sure there's a consensus that until you improve the operating environment, otherwise don't consider setting up a rental mechanism, because the mechanism won't be accepted by LegCo members. Neither would the store operators accept it. In paragraph 18, you haven't even told us who the consultant is. Before our recess last year, we were never told who would be the consultant. And what has it done? Is it going in the right direction? Paragraph 19 says that there'll be 4 areas covered, but I don't think these areas really address the core issue. Chairman, if you can't lay down the social functions of public markets, then any discussion on rental mechanism would be futile. And the 4 listed areas here in the paper, none of them actually address the topic of delineating the social functions of public markets. Chairman, of course, I think we can hear from the store operators. That's important to me as well. But they actually came here for more than once last year already. I think a more urgent matter is for us to, on behalf of the subcommittee, we should ensure that the consultancy study would actually be helpful to our tackling this public market issue. Secretary? Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The consultancy is BMT Asia Pacific. Because of limited space in the paper, we only put 3 paragraphs in the paper in relation to the consultancy study. But indeed, in reaction to the panel's meeting in July last year, on August 7th, we had mailed an abstract of the consultancy study to members. And in that abstract, the consultants have provided details on what it's going to do or cover in the 4 areas. We've already actually issued to members an abstract. And as for the 4 areas covered by the study, Mr. Liang talk about the functions and positioning of public markets. Indeed, these are the areas that the consultants would look at. It would look into the background and positioning of public markets, and also it will look forward through carrying out opinion surveys, forums, and focus group meetings. Then, based on this conceptual framework. Well, Chairman, I only have got 30 seconds left. I have 2 questions for you. Are you willing to invite the consultancy, BNT Asia Pacific, to come to our next meeting and to have discussions with members? And also, secondly, can you tell us over the next 2 years, what is your plan for timetable? Well, the consultant in the middle of this year should finish his work. Just Mr. Leung asked about, well, our plan is after the study is finished in the middle of this year, the consultants will give members the details.
You asked whether the consultant can be invited to meet with you. Well, I will relay your request to the consultant and reply to you later. Well, Chairman, I hope you can issue invitation on behalf. And second, the plan in these 2 years, because the freeze will end by the end of next year. Yes, when the consultancy report is available, we will discuss with members before we work out the timetable. I urge the ministry to tell us its preliminary plan at the next meeting. Yes, please ask the consultant to meet with us first, because by the time the report is published, then it's finalized. We can tell him our ideas at this point, so they can be added into his study. Mr. Michael Tian, Chairman. In general, I support what Mr. Leung said. So we're told that a consultant will tell us how we're going to operate public markets. I think it will just be tinkering with the system here and there. Now, this is quite ridiculous. Store operators are still paying the rental set in 1998. This is unthinkable because public markets are public resources. There have been no rent increases since 1998. But for those who have withdrawn, they are now paying market rent. And installation of air conditioning, you need the agreement of 85% of the store operators. For those who have never withdrawn from these markets, they are only paying rentals set at 1995. I don't think you can get them to agree to pay for air conditioning. So what is the positioning of our public markets? Are they there to offer extra low rental to operators perpetually? Yes, the rentals are very low, but then there is no business. When we assess whether a market is successful, should we look at the patronage, the customer flow, and also the mix of products? Of course, we want the products to be sold at lower than market prices. Then the markets can be prosperous. President Xi has been talking about furthering reforms. So I think we should see how we can further our reforms in public markets. It's pointless to ask the consultants to give us a report, because I think it will only be old wine in a new bottle. It will still be the same. I think we should first decide whether it is our intention to use our public markets to help the underprivileged or disadvantaged store operators, or should our markets be there to be successful and to offer quality, affordable commodities, and there should be enough customer flow. That being the case, our public markets should be independent of the government. There should be a statutory body to take over. It can, whether it be Ocean Park or KCLC, there should be an independent board to operate public markets. They have an annual deficit of over $200 million. It's useless. They cannot revitalize our markets. We may as well provide or set up a statutory body and give it this amount of subvention, and the statutory body can let our market stores at lower than 10 or 20% lower than the market rent, and they can choose their own tenants, and the statutory body must choose the most capable operators selling quality pork, quality vegetables, so as to attract business. Then you can create business, and more store operators will come in to do business, and they'll be willing to pay for air conditioning fees. The FS talked about structural deficit, and if we continue with this approach, our markets will only be a burden. So you don't have to respond. I want the consultant to tell us whether public markets should be run by the government or should it be by an independent body with some degree of subvention from the government. The government is certainly the poorest businessmen in Hong Kong, and I don't blame you. Civil servants are not meant to do business, but there are people who are good businessmen, so why don't you let them do it? And then they can provide cheap commodities at low rents. I think Mr. Michael Tan is also hoping to meet the consultant as soon as possible, so that we can exchange our views with the consultant about the positioning of our market. This is already at the middle of March. I believe the consultant has already drafted at least half of his report. So please don't waste time. We want to meet with the consultant if the functions and positioning proposed in the report fall short of our expectations, then it is a waste of time. Yes, I agree that these are deep-seated issues. That is about the positioning and the functions of public markets. Ms. Sitho, yes, I'm just giving comments and on comments on how the subcommittee should carry out its work. The positioning of public markets is a very big issue there are bound to be different views. And I don't think it is possible for the subcommittee to come up with a consensus, because the business sector has its views, and GC members have also received views from members of the public. They want prices to be affordable and commodities of high quality. So can the Secretariat help us to set up a skeleton on how we're going to proceed? Well, we have 4 points in our terms of reference. So how frequent are we going to meet, and what deputations should we meet? I was once a Central and Western District Councillor, and they have got a concern group on the operation of public markets there. And I sat on one of the working groups, and there were representatives from FEHD and hawkers in the working group. They had first-hand experience on the operation of markets. Perhaps we can invite such working groups to meet with us, such as the size of the stores and illegal extension of shop front, and with the threat of avian flu, should air conditioning be installed, and how ventilation can be improved. I think there should be some form of subsidy to public markets so as to counter markets operated by the Link, which is already a listed company. We should offer the stores at low rents, and so that the commodities can be cheaper. And the clauses in the tenancy agreements should also be flexible. For instance, if it's supposed to be a store selling bean curd, should it be restricted or banned from selling fish balls, for instance? So, Secretariat, I hope we can have an outline, a discussion outline. And if members have any topics for discussion, they should be sent to the chairman by a certain deadline, and so the secretary can work out a work plan for us. Yes, please allow me some time to discuss with the secretary. Yes, I don't think we have to discuss air conditioning or rental today. Okay, thank you. Dr. Fernando Zhang, he is not in the room. Dr. Helena Wong. Thank you, Chairman. We should meet with the store operators, and we should also allow members of the public to express their views, because they are patrons of public markets. And does the government know how to do business? Well, I won't comment on this point. I hope that no matter how you're going to reform our public markets, I hope it will not be replicate of what happened with the Link REIT. Now, if we want public markets to be run by a public body, we should first consider what public body. Do we have to set up a new one? Because if our public markets are privatized, then commodities will be very expensive. Repealing the situation of the Link REIT, we have to ensure that grassroots can have access to fresh provisions in public markets. We should improve the operating environment of public markets. We don't want our markets to become posh shopping malls with air conditioning and carpets and etc. And I don't know whether the consultancy will cover the proposed sites for building new markets, because as pointed out in the background brief, we once passed a motion for public markets to be constructed in Tin Shui Wai and Lai Chi Kok. The motion was not legally binding. I don't know whether it has ever been taken forward. I hope that we can follow up on that. According to the administration, in Site 6 of PRH construction site of the Housing Authority, there will be a new market. And so there is no need for FEHD to build a market in that district. Can the administration clarify whether the proposed market in Lai Chi Kok will be operated by the HD or the FEHD? And as for Tin Shui Wai, it has a high PRH population, and yet there is no public market, no market run by the FEHD. The tenants would like to have one there because the prices there are relatively higher than the urban areas.
I think on policy for Lai Chi Kok public market, I'll ask the FEHD to supplement later. As for the government, whether it will build public markets, it depends on the situation and also based on the new planning criteria for Hong Kong. There are a number of factors considered in whether to set up a public market. For example, demographics, community needs, and whether there are any public-private markets around in the neighborhood, and also whether there's supply of fresh provisions in the area and so forth. And just then, Ms. Wong asked whether the consultant would look into setting up new markets. I think you may remember that the panel has expressed concern about the existing operating environments of public markets. We still have a lot of work to do for these over 70 public markets, and we did say in the past that we hope the consultancy report will concentrate on addressing the issues facing existing markets. So we want the study to be more focused. As for the building of new markets, we are open to members' ideas. And we also act according to the policy in place. We have no plan to build new market now. As for the Lai Chi Kok market, can I ask the FEHD to supplement? Yes, for the Lai Chi Kok market, I don't have a good grasp of the actual situation there now, but normally if a market is in a housing estate, it will be under the responsibility of the housing department. I know that you've expressed concern whether our markets may be cheaper, may be selling more cheaper stuff. This is something interesting. The Consumer Council carried out a survey a few years ago. Indeed, there isn't any evidence showing that markets run by FEHD sell cheaper stuff. The rentals may be lower than markets operated by Link, but the products sold may not necessarily be cheaper than markets run by Link. We have compared prices ourselves, and I found that there could be a large differences between various commodities at Link markets and our markets. And sometimes commodities are cheaper in supermarkets. But I don't see any definite evidence that our markets are necessarily selling cheaper stuff. Well, Chairman, I do hope that we can have a meeting where we can ask the FEHD to tell us their analysis of setting up a market in some districts, like Tin Shui Wai. Members have said a lot already. It's not that we're saying that without market people will starve there, but we're saying that in some areas residents may have few choices of affordable food items. So I hope that we can have a new meeting to discuss situation in Tin Shui Wai. Yeah, I think we can actually create a new discussion item of whether there should be new markets in the future. Okay, next one is Matt May-Kun. Yeah, Chairman, that's what I wanted to address. I think apart from discussing existing market facilities and rentals, I hope that our subcommittee can talk about building new markets in new towns. In 2009, the planning criteria actually covers how many stores there should be for how many people in an area. They may not have considered, under I think before 2009, I think the planning criteria was only based on the number of people living in an area. But if you look at vegetable stores, for example, there are facilities provided based on the number of people there. I think the planning standards and criteria, by and large, are based on number of people. So we should adopt the same criteria for new towns, even though the FEHD says that it doesn't have any data on whether some foods are cheaper in some areas or some markets. I can tell you myself that we have, even though FEHD markets may not be the cheapest, but I'm sure your markets are selling products that are cheaper than link markets. I'm sure link markets must be the most expensive. In Tongchong, Yatong Estate, the prices of food items sold there actually are comparable to prices in Wan Chai. But you can see the big difference in the per capita, income for people in Tongchong and people in Wan Chai. In Tin Shui Wai, I can tell you, there are 7 markets there. But of these 7 markets, there are only 2 stores selling beef. Chairman, you are in the retail business. If you have more stores, more markets, then you make the business easier. If there are only a few stores in the shopping mall, then very few people will go to the stores. The popular markets like Central Market in Sha Tin or Tai Kee Market, they are very popular because many people like to go there because these markets are big. So, as Michael Tian just said, we need to have a survey on the positioning of markets. But I think a basic issue is that we should have markets that can give people more choices, particularly choices of cheaper items, food items. How can we make markets very popular and also at the same time giving people a variety of choices? That's something basic that we need to consider. I hope that our subcommittee from now on will also understand, the secretariat. The secretary say that, there's a lot of work for them already. But I think it may take 10 or 8 years before new markets can be set up. If we can start carrying out a study now, residents still need to wait for some time. So we can't wait anymore. We need to, we should not actually drag our feet any further. Secretary, just then Ms. Mac was saying that, yes, in 2009, before April, all the Hong Kong planning criteria and standards were based on number of people or population in a district. That is for 20,000 people, there will be around 20 to 40 market stores. But there have been amendments lately. In the future, in planning for new markets, we will look at individual circumstances. Apart from population, we will also look at factors like combination of residents, community needs, provision of public-private markets in the area, and also the number of outlets selling fresh food and so forth. The planning department would actually carry out a study and circulate its findings to various departments so that they can consider a host of factors in making a decision. In Tongchong and Tin Shui Wai, as for where there can be new markets there, we have communicated and we have received correspondence. And we would actually address any concerns raised. In the second round, Wang Ko-heng, 5 minutes. Chairman, I hope that in the days ahead, you can arrange for some public hearings to be held. And I also want to suggest that government departments should provide us with more information on the following. that will help with our discussions in the future. Because if we don't have enough information on a topic, we can't make any objective, fair proposals. So, Chairman, my first proposal is that I hope the government can, on each market, its name, year of establishment, number of stores being let out, number of vacant stores, vacant period, duration of vacant period, reasons for a store being vacant, and the plan of a market, floor plan of a market, that is to show the position of vacant stores. Chairman, you are in the retail and wholesale business. You know that for each market, there must be a reason for its existence. So if we can collect such information, concrete information about a market, then that will help with our discussion. Let me give you an example. In Causeway Bay, Tung Nong Chow Market, on the second floor of this particular market is always full, totally full. So I would first of all ask for concrete information, and then we can have more substantial discussion. Tandong Street Market in Causeway Bay. Of course, it cannot represent other markets, but if we know the concrete information, then we can identify better where the crux of the matter or the root of the problem lies. That's my first suggestion. And my second suggestion is that I hope the government departments would provide for each market information about its air conditioning, including its cooked food centers. Why some cooked food centers have air conditioning and some don't? If it's air conditioned, what are its rentals and maintenance costs? If it's not air conditioned, what are the reasons? I like the department to list out the reasons clearly. For example, maybe because the market doesn't reach the threshold of 85%, or what? So we need to know the latest reasons so we can have a clear idea of the full picture. And thirdly, I also hope that Chairman can ask the departments to, for each market, on its existing problems, ask the department to tell us what other problems these markets are facing besides air conditioning. Of course, we can't go for every single detail, but what are the issues facing the markets themselves? I think the FEHD should list them out for us. For some markets, it may be that there could be changes in the people in a neighborhood. For example, there could be a number of, for example, in Kwun Chung Market, if it's found itself in an area where there have been new malls or commercial centers set up in the neighborhood, and that affected its business. So we need to have concrete information on what are the problems facing each particular market. In some cases, there may be because there is a lack of loading areas, and that would affect the operations of a market. So therefore, I've asked the FEHD to list out the actual problems affecting the operations of each market. I hope that the department can give us really concrete information in the paper to facilitate our discussions in the days ahead. Yes, but I just want to make one more point. Just in your first point, the rental rate, I think they need to specify what stores, how many stores are rented as storage or warehouses only. You may say that the rental rate is very high, but maybe on a particular floor, all the stores are rented for storage purposes. Yes, Chairman, you're right. Yes, we need to have a plan to show to us, in each market, the rental situation. Yes, Chairman, on the information request that we'll try to provide with you what we've got. We can easily find factual information for you. As for any issue with assessment, for example, on why there are so few people going to market, it may take us more time to find those information. Mr. Wong just mentioned Tanglong Chao market. Let me give you a supplementary information. I know that Mr. Wong understands the issues that we've faced with, and well, indeed, the particular market in Causeway Bay has a very low usage rate. Therefore, in June 2011, we have moved stores in the second floor to the ground floor so as to merge stores in the market. And the first floor of the market now has been allocated for other purposes. So we've actually taken up follow-up actions to improve the usage of a particular market, like this market in Causeway Bay. Chairman, I think they should have given us a paper, to tell us more about the information of changes in markets. It's really strange. The Causeway Bay commands the highest rents, and yet over the years there is this market that is largely vacant for so long. Next one, Ellen Liang. I'm quite impatient. I don't think we have much time left. December 31st, 2015 is when the rental freeze period will expire. If you want to give the store operator some months to absorb changes in rent, that means we have only from now on only about 15 months left. We don't want to see repeats of incidents that happened in the end of 2012. So I think it's quite a pressing issue. We haven't got too much time left. Haven't heard from so many members. I find that there seem to be a number of issues that need to be resolved quickly and also addressed quickly. So, Chairman, I think maybe you can consider maybe both of us can have an internal meeting with the government department first to see what we can do in the remaining time to ensure that the consultant would not go in the wrong direction, would not waste their time. I think we may need to have an internal meeting held as soon as possible, and also identify the tasks that need to be done, what we need to do in the months ahead.
Because, as said earlier, we hope the Secretariat, or rather the PS, can understand this. The Secretary was willing to cede to our request when he announced the 2-year rent freeze. He said that he had heard our views and there should be a comprehensive review of the functions and positioning of public markets, and that's how the consultancy study has come about. So he's doing this in response to the concerns of members who are after all reflecting the views of the public to you. So I hope there can be communication with the tenants. And some members asked whether new markets should be built and the problems encountered associated with the installation of air conditioning. In fact, we have a long list of issues to cover. So, Chairman, I hope the Secretariat can organize an internal meeting for you and myself and the relevant officials to sit down together so we can agree on a proposed work plan as soon as possible. So, PS, you've heard our comments, and you've also heard many new issues this afternoon. So let's arrange a meeting for myself, Mr. Alan Leung, government officials, and consultant to sit down together. Because if the consultant doesn't know what we are thinking about, then it may be a waste of time. We want to know whether the consultant share our views and whether the direction he is heading is actually in line with us. Okay. All right. So the Secretariat will contact you. Any other questions? If not, I have got a few. I think the link REIT has made huge impacts on the retail industry, and some legislators talk about buying of link REIT. I don't think this is realistic. There are 159 sites from the government. There is plenty of room for development of retail space for SMEs and for tenants for the housing department. I think only competition from these new sites can really benefit the SMEs. So is the government planning more new public markets? I am also in the retail industry. Sometimes rental increases is not a major problem. The biggest problem is facilities. As Ms. Ellen Leung said, you should not just increase rents. Have you upgraded your facilities correspondingly? Now, if you have upgraded your facilities and attracted more customers, I think tenants are willing to pay you more. Mr. Michael Tian said that it's never been heard in the retail industry that rents can be frozen for so many years. That's true, but if facilities have not been upgraded for so long, how can you increase rents? For commercial shopping malls, facilities are upgraded once every 2-3 years. So when the facilities are improved, there is a higher customer flow, so you can increase rents. You should not do it the other way around. You should not increase rents without taking care of other things. Right, you mentioned the link REIT. We are responsible for FEHD markets. We run 76, whereas link REIT runs 113, so there are 190 odd public markets. But of course, your views can be relayed to the relevant authorities. And I also share Mr. Alan Leung's views when we proposed rent increases. You also mentioned improvement of the business environment. In response, the Secretary has commissioned a consultancy. The government has invested resources. It's not that we have not done anything because of the rent freeze. Take 2014-15 as an example. We are going to spend $31 million to improve 5 markets. And we've also adopted a lot of measures in the past to improve the operating environment of our markets. We have not been waiting for the consultancy to act. For instance, the short-term tenancy mechanism, so as to enhance the flexibility, and whether we can have more stores to boost the patronage. And there is also a mechanism for the tenants to apply to sell different types of commodities. And if a store is really vacant for 6 months or more, the upset auction prices have been lowered, as mentioned in the paper. And we've also introduced new services and new trades in our markets, so that we can attract more customers to our markets by diversification. So we have introduced a number of measures to improve the operating environment, and we hope members will support our work in this regard. But facilities are important. Now, if the stores are vacant for a long time, you lower the rents and you further lower the rents if it is vacant for a longer period of time. Then if facilities are not good, then of course there will be no customer flow. Well, some of our markets are very popular. In some cases, the upside auction price was as much as $60,000, and still the store was let. So, of course, we welcome more comments from members. Any more members? If I may say a few words. Yes, if you just single out one or two cases, I think you're just doing it for the sake of arguing with us. Now, are you going to reconsider the positioning and social functions of market? We have got more than 70 public markets. We want a policy direction that is valid for all markets. You cannot say that because in one public market there was a store where people were willing to pay $60,000 per month, that means your markets are successful. I hope you understand. Regarding the social functions of our public markets, of course I understand that Link REIT is under the portfolio of the Transport and Housing Bureau. The fact is, in many districts, there are only markets operated by the Link REIT. So both the tenants and customers suffer. The tenants have to pay very high rents, and customers that patronize these outlets have to pay more because of the higher rents in these markets. I think public markets can serve one function, and that is to enhance competition, which will make Link REIT more reasonable. Now, I am not drawing any conclusion. I know this is a balancing act. However, I hope that the comprehensive review, with the assistance of the consultant, we can draw up the new positioning and functions of our public markets. I'm sure the PS understands what we are talking about after so long. This is not a minor exercise. And since myself and the chairman joined this council, we have not seen any positive development. I hope that the consultancy study is leading us towards the end of the tunnel so that we can see some light. We don't want, I don't think the PS would like to see someone threatening to jump from a flyover come the 31st of December 2015. No one wants to see that. I think it is best for us to have a closed-door meeting or internal meeting with the administration so as to work out a work plan and the issues to be covered by this subcommittee. Okay. Item 3 is schedule of meetings and items for discussion. I don't think we can have anything for that now. Why don't we wait until our internal meeting with the administration? When we have the work plan, then we can decide on the items for discussion. How about that? Okay. So that ends our meeting. All right. I hope that the Secretariat can fix a date with the administration for our closed meeting as soon as possible. The meeting doesn't have to be long. An hour or so will do. Thank you very much for your attendance.